Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Welcome back to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with me, Karl Fitzpatrick. Well, my next guest, Clare Tait from Chocolatey Clare, started her journey as a food entrepreneur at the age of 50, and she joins me now on the phone to discuss her vegan chocolate brand. Clare, we'll be discussing your chocolate brand, Chocolatey Clare. But first, you were a latecomer to the world of food entrepreneurship. So perhaps you can tell us about your career prior to establishing Chocolatey Clare.
Yes, indeed. So I left DCU in 1987 and I had a BA in Applied Languages, which was a translation degree. So I started work straight away in a big German company as part of the translation team. And I loved that. I worked there for several years. And then in 93, I actually set up my own translation business along with a business partner of mine. And that went fantastically well also. And I had my first son in 98, and I took a little break after that and restarted the translation business myself, my own business. But I was on my own at that stage, so I did find it kind of insular and a little bit less fun, basically. So when my second son came along in 2002, I, subsequent to that, decided I wanted to do something different, and I went to work in the adult literacy sector, which I absolutely loved. As it happened, my whole family had turned vegan in 2014, I think, or maybe 2015. So at that point, I was missing the chocolatey kind of treats. Did a lot of research and came up with a recipe that I was happy with and started doing that by myself.
And what about competition in that space? Is there much?
Yeah, there's more and more competition in the dairy-free vegan confectionery, even in the last few months, with some of the big players now coming in with their own vegan brands or variants of their own chocolate. And actually, I'm all for customer choice. I'm all for competition. The downside, I suppose, would be obviously the bigger players have much more clout and they can get into the retailers, you know, far more easily and far faster. And they can produce their products far cheaper as well. So obviously the chocolate is cheaper.
So how are you going to overcome both of those challenges?
Well, I still have some differences, if you like, in that the ethically sourced ingredients, the fact that most of the ingredients are also organic. All my packaging is fully compostable. On the outer boxes of my chocolate bars, they're printed on FSC certified board, and it's all vegetable based ink, which is obviously much more environmentally friendly than the usual petroleum based ink. And the printing company that I use, their printing machines are wind powered. So I was trying to let my general standards of ethics, if you like, transfer to all aspects of the chocolate. And also the taste profile is different. It is a luxury premium chocolate. It has a rich depth of flavour, but it doesn't have an overarching bitterness, and it's not overly sweet. So it's for people with a certain palate, if you like. And I also have a range of 6 flavours, some of which are sweeter than others within my range. So it kind of caters to quite a wide audience.
So you've deliberately gone out to source ethical suppliers, but in terms of the consumer, how important do you think that will be to them?
Well, I think it's getting more and more important because awareness is increasing globally as to the effects of our choices, of our consumer choices on other people, other animals, our environment, and the entire planet, basically. And, unfortunately, in the chocolate industry, there's a lot of cheap chocolate, but there's also a lot of child labour and even slave labour in the cocoa industry. Not everywhere, obviously, but it's important to recognise that when an end product is cheap, there's usually a reason for that, and there are losers in that game, and they are most definitely the people on the ground. So I think people are making a move with an increased awareness of what I would call food ethics. There is maybe more of a move towards less but better. So you don't need a 200-gram bar of chocolate, necessarily. That you could have less but a better quality.
Claire, I have to admit that when I hear about dairy-free chocolate, I often wonder if it's taste-free too.
Yes, well, that was something that I did come up against really myself, because when we went vegan, I did source as many creamier, if you like, dairy-free chocolates that were already out there, and I basically didn't really like them. My idea was to create a delicious chocolate as well, because I always think, what people buy something, if it's very worthy or they agree with all the ethics of a product, if it doesn't taste nice, they're not going to buy it again.
And in terms of market share, how much demand is there for vegan chocolate amongst Irish consumers today?
Well, again, I think it's something that's growing with an awareness of maybe, again, the effect of our food choices on our environment. And as well as that, a lot of people actually have an intolerance to dairy that they mightn't know about, because I think worldwide is about 70% of people have a dairy intolerance. It's kind of more accentuated in China and South America and Asia, where maybe 95% of the population would have a dairy intolerance. Here, I think it's probably around 40%. But, people don't tend to look at dairy as that's giving them problems, but they might have a skin issue or shortness of breath or that kind of thing, which it can be aggravated by dairy products. So I think if people are looking, to see what can I cut out of my diet or what is making me feel so sluggish, and they think possibly let's have a look at the dairy, and they cut it out. One of the reasons that people are finding it tricky, even if they have an awareness or want to cut out dairy, is that they think, oh, I don't want to give up chocolate. And most of my customers are not vegan at all. They just like the chocolate and they like the artisan aspect.
Today, from a sales and marketing perspective, you have opted for the direct selling approach over the appointing of a distributor to sell it on your behalf. Now, how straightforward has it been for you to get your product onto the shelves of supermarkets? And secondly, how long does it usually take from the time that you contact them to actually getting your product on their shelf?
Well, I started off in 2016 knowing absolutely nothing about the food industry, so it was absolutely essential for me to do some courses. So I did the Food Academy course, which is done in relation to SuperValu, and that was invaluable to me just to get the workings of the food industry. And also at the end of that course, you have an in to the SuperValu shelves in a certain locality. So that was invaluable for me. And once you're on somebody's shelf, it's easier to go to other retailers and say, I'm currently in such a place, would you be interested in my product? I was aiming for higher end retail outlets because it is an expensive product to produce. So therefore it's expensive for the consumer to buy. And once I got into it, it did take a lot of persistence, to be honest, having to find who's the right person to contact within, say, a retail organisation who has the authority, to say yes or no to your particular product. So it was very, very time consuming. It's actually a bit easier now because I have got into, maybe about 45 outlets around the country. Having said that, I think I'm at the point where a distributor would start to look to work well for my business. And I know I haven't really looked into that very much, but I know distributors work with certain, strata of retailers. So I'd be aiming maybe for the posher cafes or the food hall type of places where it sits well amongst maybe, equivalently priced kind of product.
And finally, Claire, what has been the greatest lesson that you've learned on your journey?
The greatest lesson would be that I could actually achieve what I set out to achieve at the start. So at the start of when I set up the business, I knew what I wanted to have at the end. I knew the kind of end product that I wanted to have in my hand, but I had no idea how to get there. So every challenge, every turn in the road that I came upon, I had to do another layer of research in order to figure out what way I was to go and how I was to achieve the next aim. So the greatest lesson I've learned is A, it's an absolute roller coaster being in business by yourself. B, you absolutely have to have some other form of income, if not from your, if it's not yourself who's bringing in the income, then somebody in your circle who's bringing in income. And the other lesson I learned is that people do actually enjoy my chocolate.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Clare Tait from Chocolatey Clare, and we wish her continued success in growing her brand.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
South